When DNA identified the real killer in the Norfolk 4 case, you might expect the investigation to shift. You might expect the confessions to be re-examined. You might expect the truth to matter. But in Norfolk, Virginia, the truth wasn't enough.
In part 1, which was last week, so go back and give it a listen if you haven't yet, we talked through the interrogations, the contradictions, and the confessions that didn't match the crime scene. Today, we're stepping into the second half of the story, the real killer's confession, the prosecutors who refused to accept it, and the decades-long fight to undo a chain of wrongful convictions.
This is part 2 of the Norfolk 4. Hey, coworkers.
Welcome to Coworkers in Crime, the podcast where office chatter meets crime discussion.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Crystal.
Yes, we really do work together.
And yes, we're totally obsessed with true crime.
From water cooler whispers to cold case deep dives,
we're here to bring you stories that keep us chatting way past our coffee breaks.
So grab your coffee,
lock your desk drawer, and let's get into this week's case.
In 1998, a year after Michelle Moore-Bosko was killed, the state crime lab got a hit. The DNA from the rape kit belonged to Omar Ballard, a man with a history of violent assaults, and he was already in prison for another attack.
When detectives questioned Ballard, he confessed, and unlike the sailors, his confession matched the crime scene. He described details only the killer would know and the position of Michelle's body, the sequence of the assault, and the way he entered the apartment. And he said he acted alone. According to the Washington Post, Ballard told investigators repeatedly, "I did this by myself." He didn't hedge, he didn't implicate anyone else, and he didn't change his story.
But prosecutors didn't accept that. They insisted Ballard was part of a larger group, even though there was no forensic evidence of multiple attackers.
This is where the case shifts from tragic to almost incomprehensible. Because instead of seeing Ballard's confession as the truth, prosecutors folded him into their existing theory. Prosecutors argued that Ballard joined the group of sailors in a coordinated attack, a theory that had no basis in physical evidence, no fingerprints, no DNA, no sign of multiple attackers, as we said in the first episode.
And the confessions, they didn't match each other. They didn't match the crime scene. They didn't even match Ballard's confession. But prosecutors treated the contradictions as proof of guilt, as if the inconsistencies were signs of trauma or confusion rather than signs of coercion.
This is a pattern we see in wrongful convictions. When the evidence doesn't fit, the narrative becomes more elaborate, more complicated, more implausible.
And the more implausible it becomes, the harder it is for the system to admit it's wrong.
Despite the DNA mismatch, despite Ballard's solo confession, the sailors were convicted. Some pled guilty to avoid death penalty, and some went to trial and still lost. Yeah,
that baffles
so hard.
me. Sorry,
yeah.
That baffles me that you can go to trial and you're innocent and you still lose.
And it's so hard to listen to. I mean, we're repeating this, and a lot of times we do as much outline of bulleting and scripting so that we can stay on task, because otherwise we go awry. But this is hard to say, like knowing they're going to end up going through trial and losing. This is a long process to even think about, much less live through. Could you imagine watching your 20-year-old son go through this, Rachel?
No, not at all. And
knowing.
I'm just thinking how long the appeal process is, how long, to even get your case heard for appeal. I mean, it's not like you file it on a Monday and by Friday, your case is reviewed. And it's a process. It's not like a overnight situation.
And don't forget, to appeal, you have to go through trial and lose first. So that process is so long. It's so sad that this is just really sad that these poor kids went through this.
The prosecution's case leaned heavily on these confessions, even though they contradicted each other, and they contradicted the forensic evidence. In one trial, a juror later said the confession, quote unquote, felt off, but they believed the police wouldn't lie. They believed the detectives wouldn't coerce a confession.
And that's a powerful confession. Even when it's wrong, even when it's inconsistent, even when it's implausible, jurors still believe it.
And the Innocence Project has said repeatedly, a confession is the most powerful piece of evidence in the courtroom, even when it shouldn't be.
Has there ever been a case that you've watched that you were concerned about when a false confession? Like, there are a few of them that I can think of off the top.
None that I've followed from the beginning, but I think there's that case in Texas where he was a young high school football player accused of, I believe it's sexual assault on a child at a daycare, and he went to prison for years. He's since been exonerated. And, when I read about that one, I was heartbroken. And he said all along, I'm not confessing to a crime I didn't commit. He ends up being, found guilty and sent, and his whole trajectory of life gets changed because he goes to prison. He's there for so many years until he's able to be exonerated. And I think that's the piece that gets me the most is those lost years of people in prison.
Mhm.
They lose that time with their family, with their friends, just their life's trajectory, going to college for some people after high school or, do whatever it is, your career. And then your name's out there. So if anyone Googles your name,
Yeah.
when you're at a job interview going through that process, if they happen to Google your name and that pops up, like, even though you're found innocent, there's all those articles beforehand where you were found guilty and you were convicted of a crime.
And it's hard to change public opinion. Like, why did they, especially with how much regard we put and respect we put in our police for so long, which is why some people now are just so quick to just, I don't trust you. But we put so much into our police force and put so much respect into them that's why this juror is like, well, why would they make that up? If they've arrested you, you've done something, you know? I I think I would even question, like, well, how did you get to me anyway? Where was I at the wrong place at the wrong time? And how easily that
Right.
can happen. It could so easily happen. It's just very terrifying. So, over the next decade, the sailors fought to clear their names. Their appeals gained support for an unusual coalition. Former Virginia attorneys general, former FBI agents, legal scholars, and innocence organizations.
The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals issued opinions questioning the reliability of the confessions. Judges described the interrogations as coercive, the confessions as contradictory, and the prosecution's theory as implausible.
And as Rachel and I just mentioned, appeals are slow. The legal system is not designed to correct its own mistakes quickly.
Especially when those mistakes involve confessions.
So, in 2009, Governor Tim Kaine granted conditional pardons. These were not full exonerations. They didn't declare the men were innocent, but they allowed them to be released from prison.
Conditional pardons are a strange legal place. They acknowledge that something went wrong, but not enough to overturn the convictions entirely.
It was a step forward, but it wasn't justice.
It wasn't until 2017, 9 years ago, and 20 years after the murders, that Governor Terry McAuliffe issued full pardons, acknowledging that the convictions were fundamentally flawed.
The pardon stated clearly the confessions were unreliable, the forensic evidence didn't support the convictions, and the prosecution's theory was impossible. That's a big one. That their theory was impossible means more to me than the other two.
Yeah, I agree. And for the first time, the state acknowledged what had been clear from the beginning. The Norfolk Four were innocent.
The men later won civil settlements for the years they lost, but no amount of money can restore the time, the reputation, and the psychological toll, which we just kind of talked about. There's just nothing that rebuilds that. You can't change what people think of you. You've basically lost your life. I mean, awful.
Some of the men struggled to rebuild their lives. Some struggled with PTSD, and some struggled with the stigma that lingers even after a pardon. Those are things we were talking about just before. And I can't imagine. I mean, I imagine that they were, I didn't see it in any of the research that we did for this, but I would imagine they were probably discharged from the military.
Mm-hmm. Like with
Like a
dishonorable.
dishonorable discharge. And I mean, if that's what they were going to do for their career was to serve this country and be a sailor and, gosh, and then you end up in prison for 10 years. Sorry, 20 years. 20 years they were in prison.
And it's so sad because I mean it's almost like you think about someone who the woman who passed away. When you think about Michelle, she lost her entire life, doesn't get a chance to live again. These guys ended up being punished because they considered that a neighbor might be obsessed with her because he helped with the groceries. Like how far back that goes, all from one guy being polite to somebody else, and then we're gonna just say you're sus and you're sus and you're sus, and we're just gonna involve everyone, and then, oh, you actually fit the case. Well, you can join them too. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's put you on it too. You did it too. And that's just tunnel
Yeah,
vision.
and 8 people they had at one time. 8 people. 4 got convicted.
Yeah. It's really gross. The Norfolk 4 case is a study in systemic failure, tunnel vision, just said that one, coercive interrogations, over-reliance on confessions, disregard for forensic evidence, and institutional resistance to admitting error.
And it's a reminder that wrongful convictions don't happen because of one bad decision. They happen because of a series of decisions, each one small, each one avoidable, that accumulate into catastrophe.
The Norfolk 4 weren't just victims of flawed investigation. They were victims of a system that prioritized closure before truth.
And this story forces us to confront a difficult reality. If it can happen to 4 sailors in a Navy town, it can happen anywhere. And I think we've seen that.
Yeah, we've seen it. It reminds us that justice isn't just about punishing the guilty, too. It's a protection of it's about protecting the innocent. That's why I think it's important that you're assumed innocent until proven guilty. We have to assume you're innocent. It's the only way because of things like this. If it doesn't work for the worst of us, it can't work for the best of us. And this is one of those cases that it did not work for the best of us because they thought this was the worst of us, if that makes sense. Like, they treated these guys like, you are the bad guy. You are, and I'm not going to admit that I was wrong. I'd rather take your entire life away from you. It's just sad. It's
Very
really
sad.
Do you know where they are today?
I don't. That might be a good follow-up. Little
Well,
bonusy episode.
I do know a couple bullets. I do know a couple bullets.
There we go.
Yeah, the Norfolk 4, they were released years after appeals, and they were pardoned in 2021. Their convictions were vacated, and they are now free men. The case remains one of the highest profile wrong convictions, but they have pursued civil litigation for the convictions, and they participated in media interviews about wrongful convictions and advocacy efforts. So I would really love to see some of those. So if you want to look further into those and tell us what you think about them, Joseph Dick, Derek Tice, Daniel Williams, and Eric Wilson, those are the ones you want to go back and watch on. I am sure in this case, in something like this, that's where you just feel, okay, this is what I was meant to do. I spent 20 years serving for something that I did not do. And now I have to protect others that this happens to. And it's almost, this becomes your mission. It's just such a sad thing. It's so sad that that's where this passion had to grow from, is 20 years of serving time for something you did not do. Well, I guess they served 20. It was 20 years after the conviction, but they were released for how many years before? They were all released in 2009 to 2017, not really released. They were still dealing with it. They weren't really pardoned until 21.
That's wild.
17 was 20 years. Yeah, and it's super
So 24
sad.
years.
Yeah, that's a long time of being caught up in this problem that you didn't really have anything to do with. When did court play become the way it is now? Because I know the game isn't always played the same way, wasn't always played the same way. I mean, this may be something that we have your hubs come on and do with us when we talk about court. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? That's a bull in a china shop. That would be great. I would love to hear his thoughts on how trials play out, and you got like kind of talk through some of the rules and regulations of court. What do you think? Would he do that?
I don't know if he would do. Well, I'll ask him, but because he doesn't quite understand our obsession with true crime.
Well, this is law. He loves law.
He does. I'll ask him.
Maybe the trial side. We don't have to talk about an actual crime, but we can talk about trial and the fundamentals of court. Stuff.
Yeah.
Because these poor guys.
This one is tough. And it's even tougher to realize they're not the only ones. Like, you know, I know that there's that saying, you know, everyone's innocent in prison, but there are actually innocent people sitting in prison. And some are put to death. You know, like that scares me too. Like I said, watch that movie. You'll be angry. Come back and let me know what you think.
Down. I know you saw where my eyes went because that's where I wrote it down. Anything else you want to follow up on?
Nope. We'll just say, you know, thanks for listening to our 2-part series, and we'll see you next time, coworkers.
See you next time. That wraps up this week's episode.
Thanks for listening, whether you're at your office, at your home, or somewhere in between. We're glad you're here.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Like what you heard? Leave us a review and share it with your coworkers.
Got a case you want us to cover or office drama that feels criminal? Send it to us at coworkers.crimepodcast@gmail.com or check the episode notes for all of our social handles. Until next time, coworkers.
Stay curious, stay safe, and stay caffeinated.